Hello! Today is about episode 17, potentially 16, but maybe even 15. And we're going to be pretty much centering all the focus on love and what is lust and what's the difference between love and lust. And it's another ep just with Capo today. My beautiful guest cancelled on me. So yeah, she's no longer in my life anymore. I've left her in the curb. No. Strap in for this unplanned episode and see what comes out. I've been reflecting quite a lot on my past, like loves and lusts, and people have really moved me. People who I thought were going to be more than what they were, but they were just a lesson, which is quite beautiful anyway. I was reflecting last week and I had a funny realization that the biggest unconditional love I've ever experienced has been with a guy over 5 days. And this guy was just like, you'd look into his eyes and he was just pure. Anyway, I might even tell the story about that one because it's kind of wholesome. So I had just gotten a job working up the coast at this like really cool pizza place, and it doubled as a live music venue, and it was run by these epic Brazilians who just knew how to party. And I just loved my role there. I felt like I was in my element in hospo and just loved talking to people and making people's experience one that they'd remember. But yeah, I remember just being behind the bar and I was washing dishes and I was just feeling good. And it was a Friday, and on Friday nights they'd have live music, and I remember just like being at the bar facing the other way, and I was just washing dishes and just humming and just having a time. I really loved my job there. And I just heard something behind me, so I turned around and there's this guy there, and I was just like, holy fuck. Like, I just was absolutely blown away by his beauty, but just by the way he stood and just the person that he was. I could just tell from the moment I saw him that there was something special about him. And I couldn't hold myself back, but I just looked at him and I was like, oh my God, you are the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. And I just said it and I was like, whoa, that was cringe. But it was cool. I was like, fuck it, that's my truth in that moment. And then did the service, had a really cool sesh. His music was phenomenal, beautiful voice. So it was coming to the end of the night and I was like, oh, this guy's so rad, but I'm not going to do anything about it. And then my friend who I was working with at the time too was just like, let's go jam at your house. And I was like, why not? So she invited him back to mine, and then we all went back to there, and it was just epic. Like, they were all just jamming, playing music, singing, and I don't have a musical bone in my body, although I love music. I was just watching, and it was probably the first time in my life that I was experiencing the ecstasy of music and like understanding its power and understanding just like the connection in jamming. And I obviously had love heart eyes for this guy, but such love heart eyes for my friend too. And just watching them, it was just magic. And then that night, everyone went home. I didn't think anything of it. And then it turns out he got my number off my friend, potentially. I can't remember the nitty-gritty. And we ended up meeting up later that night after I finished work, and it was just like kind of like the perfect evening. You know, the stars were out and like the guitar was out, and like a lot of the time when the guitar's out I kind of cringe because it gets a bit kumbaya, but this guy could do no wrong in my eyes. We just spent kind of like the whole week just like in music, surfing, just like stretching, getting real burnt, just having the best time, and like cooking in the outdoor kitchen and all the good stuff. He was actually here from WA, so it was going to be fleeting anyway. It was just magic, and he was the first guy who's ever shown me just like love that's got no bounds. He was just a walking piece of love who just wanted to give me the coolest experience, treat me like a queen, teach me whatever I needed to be taught, and he was just there. And when it was time for him to go, I remember just feeling for the first time in my life, like, you do meet people for a reason. It's always for you know, the beauty that was, that is, or it's like to teach you or to remind you that there is people out there that you're going to click with in the future, and that there's magic to be experienced again in the realms of relationships that are platonic and not platonic as well. But yeah, I remember just feeling quite raw when he was leaving, and oh, you can hear the bush turkey outside. He is causing an absolute ruckus. We've named him, what do we name him? Gerald. He's a real bastard. Anywho, yeah, I remember just like leaving him and being like, oh, I've just been shown unconditional, boundless love that was fleeting, but it was just like, I don't know, something super, super special. So yeah, I guess that's kind of like, I've experienced like little fleeting, sweet moments like that quite a bit in my life, where you're kind of at the right place at the right time, and it's like maybe a resonance thing or a frequency thing. But that was such a beautiful one. I hadn't experienced that kind of like proper, like equal give and take, unconditional kind of love, and it moved me. And reflecting on it last week, I was like, yeah, that was really big and formative for the relationships that would follow. Wanted to give 2 examples for what I would call love and what I would call lust, because I didn't think it was going to be so hard to differentiate between the two, because when you're so caught up in the lust chemicals, you really can trick yourself. A story on lust is like a simple story. Last year, I was going to a party, and I was kind of just like, I was in a bit of a mood. I don't think I'm that character anymore, but I went out and I was just like, I just want to be desired. And it's very shallow to say, and I look back on it and go, fuck that. Like, the last thing I ever want now is to be desired. I can't. But anyway, desire, lust. So we have an example, so you know that you're not alone in your lusty feelings. We've all experienced it. We all have sex as well. Why am I feeling shame around sharing this? So I went out to this party. I don't party. I hadn't had a drink in like 3 years or 2 years or something. And I decided to have a night. I was just like, fuck it. My mantra was no expectations, just appreciation. I remember it clearly. I was dressed as a basketballer. And I went to this party, had the best night ever, and then the party ended, got shut down, and at 12 somebody else was like, come to another party, and I was like, you know what, it's my night. I went to this party, and the minute I walked in, I just like locked eyes with this guy, and I was like, holy shit. Like, I could just feel the chemistry, and I didn't realize that's what it was like at that time, because I hadn't done my studies, but it was just like on, but still like a bit uncertain as well. And then after just like doing my thing, dancing, hanging out, it was just like we just kind of kept coming back together. And then we spent the night together, and it was just chemistry overload. It wasn't anything more than that, but it was pure attraction. The next day I like saw it very clearly for what it was, but it was just like, it's a cool thing to realize that you can literally go out and be like, I want to be desired. You can channel that, but you have to be really careful with your sexual energy, which I'm realizing. I live like a pretty like romantic kind of, I guess, a sexual kind of life. I'm using like sex energy to create, to motivate, to bring ideas to life. Hello guys, from the editing room. I decided that I didn't actually want to add the little story that I was going to add. So I just wanted to say that you got to be quite careful with the energy that you're putting out, full stop, but the sexual energy, because a lot of people in my experiences, a lot of people have taken the energy to be an advance, and it's not that. It's something that I cultivate for myself, and yeah, whoever gets let in. I'm joking, but yeah, thanks for listening. That was my lesson on love and lust. I wanted to touch a little bit on chemistry. I've realized that chemistry is not compatibility, because compatibility is not like an urgent thing. It's not like a craving or anything like that. It's a bigger surrender, but chemistry is desire. It's urgent. Compatibility is what you're looking for. And that's like aligned values, emotional safety and trust and feeling peace. And you'll notice when you've attracted something that's right for you that your nervous system will feel calm. I think we've probably all been caught in a lusty situation in our time. I think it's important, it's also a rite of passage, to be able to differentiate the two, and to be able to realize that lust is pretty much purely chemical, and love, it's like a regulated system. Intuition is always spot on, but if you're not regulated, if you're not doing these things that I'm always preaching, like meditating and slowing down, stretching, all that jazz, you can't think clearly and your intuition can't guide you. It takes a really long while to get to know people, but you can see character quite early on, in my opinion. A big thing to realize is that chemistry is not compatibility. Like, it's good if there is chemistry, but a lot of the time chemistry comes later, in my opinion. Yeah, I think it's really important to be looking more for compatibility, which is aligned values and emotional safety. Trust somebody who's showing you that they're present, because again, your presence and your energy are both your best currencies. So it's 2023 and we're looking for sincerity and not intoxicating chemistry, because chemistry doesn't get you very far. You can't really build on chemistry. It's good when there is chemistry, and it's important for it to come maybe a little bit further down the line. But I think the first thing that we're looking for is healthy character. And like, don't get me wrong, those other traits are, they're hot, they're sick traits. I love them, I look for them. But what I look for the most is character, and I think it's a healthier way to go about just love in general, love in friendships, love wherever it may be. Back to intuition. Your intuition will guide you if your channels are clear. So if you're doing the practices that need to be done, like meditation, slowing down, yoga, eating the good foods, your channels are clear. You can see things very clearly. You can decide what you're going to stand for and what you're not going to stand for. On that note, actually, I wanted to talk a little bit about trust issues. I had a big moment a couple of months ago where I realized that I felt like I couldn't trust this guy. And then I mirrored it back to myself and I was like, well, can you trust yourself? And then I was just like, oh, that's something that I'm really going to have to work on. And since then, I've been very, very intentional about kicking myself into gear and being very intentional with my doings. But the thing with trust is that you have to cultivate a sense of self. Trust of self is you have to cultivate a sense of self that's completely unbreakable, meaning that if somebody does cross your boundaries in any way, you get to look at yourself and decide whether you want to move forward or whether it's time to call it quits. But yeah, I hear a lot of people being like, I have trust issues and things like that. And I just think to myself, now that I have mirrored it back on myself, I didn't trust myself. I thought that, if the person was to come back, I'd just let him back in. And now that I have a firmer sense of self and stronger will, there's just no way that I would ever stand for anything that isn't top shelf. Yeah, but again, trust issues are really not about trusting somebody else. The trust issue is yourself. You need to be able to look at yourself and be so strong in your decision to put yourself first, because the biggest act of self-care, in my opinion, is putting yourself first. It's not settling for the crumbs. We ain't settling for the crumbs. We're manifesting huge, big love, and we're manifesting people who reciprocate, and we're manifesting equal give and take, and we're manifesting emotional availability. And touching on emotional availability, actually, because it is important to go for people who are emotionally available. I noticed, because my dad wasn't, I'm not blaming anyone anymore, but I guess you can see the pattern is quite there. The proof is in the pud. My dad was quite emotionally unavailable, and I've noticed a correlation. Not being able to lean on my main male figure for emotional support has meant that I've gone for quite emotionally unavailable guys. But it's been cool because I've been able to learn what it means to be emotionally available myself. So emotionally available people will be okay with having tough conversations. They understand equal give and take. they listen as much as they contribute. They make you feel comfortable when you're opening up, so they just make the environment so that, you know, when you're having a vulnerable moment, you can just say what you need to say and speak your truth, and there's room for that. They also take responsibility for their actions, and they're consistent. God, consistency gets me riled up. When somebody is consistent and it's not just like hot and cold and crumbs and a baguette and then crumbs and then another baguette. It's like, consistency, although you can look at it as a boring thing, now I just like, I see consistency and I'm like, oh, that feels lovely. And yeah, the final point is they address issues head on, which I've kind of already talked about. But yeah, we really need to be making sure that when we're open for love and in general in any sort of relationship, if I'm being quite honest with myself, I think I need all my friendships and relationships and all that jazz to be quite emotionally available relationships. So yeah, I really look for that. But yes, it does take an immense amount of courage to put yourself first and to leave something behind that worked in some ways but didn't in many others. That was proper self-love, dog. The concept of people kind of coming into your life to teach you lessons or to show you love or to show you what is not love and what is just merely an important and fruity lesson that you can take into your next relationship or whatever it may be. But what I realize and what I really feel now deeply in my heart is that we're not in control of anything. Everything is just happening as it may, but we don't have any say. We've got free will and we can make choices and stuff like that, and we can put whatever foot forward we want to put forward, but in the end it's nothing is our choice. Everything's pretty much already written. So yeah, it makes me laugh when I kind of reflect on like guys that I've been with, and I've met somebody in Europe and then I've crossed paths with them in bloody Tasmania, and they've always just come back around. Even I went on a date with this guy when I lived in Melbourne. We went out for dinner and just had a little one-night affair, and then a few years down the track, like 7 years down the track, I was back living on the Northern Rivers, and I flew back to Melbourne, and I flew back to Victoria and went and visited a friend that was like 2 hours out of Melbourne living in Torquay, and I got there and that guy lived with my friend, and it's just funny, like everything just comes full circle. And yeah, I've had so many little moments like that where I just think to myself, why not just trust? Why not just like let go of the reins completely? And why not just see every single day as an opportunity for another adventure, another, you know, what could possibly happen? Who could you meet? It's pretty cool. Like another of those moments happened when I was down south, took myself for a little camping weekend at Yamba, and I was at Angourie actually, and the surf was just cooking, and for some unknown reason there was nobody there, and it was the back beach, so it was the left, and I'm a goofy, so I was just living large, and I went out and there was maybe 3 guys out, and we were just having a ball. It was just like the longest rides, and I just clicked with these dudes, and they were like, come for a jam tonight, and I was just so incredibly tired that I didn't end up going. I just parked the van up and just had a little capo night, and then a couple years later down the track I went to this festival the other day, and I like locked eyes with this guy, and I was like, oh, that guy's so groovy. I was like, I feel like I know him. And then we kept just like ending up being in the same spots at this festival, and I think that's what you'd call, it felt a bit lusty vibes, but I don't know, there was some sort of connection there, and I realized that it was him. Yeah, you know, what's meant to cross your path again kind of will. And not that this guy was the love of my life or anything like that, but it just, you know, you do your thing, you make your choices, you do what feels good for you, and I think you get kind of, in a way, rewarded for that, for holding your own little resonance and, yeah, not playing any of those fucking games anymore. I thought I'd do a little segment on healing the old heart after, you know, a breakup or ending a situationship. But it's a tricky one because healing is absolutely not linear. It's very different for everyone. Situations are very significant to you. But I do think we still, evidently, since we are all one and we are all the same, go through a lot of similar kind of heart expeditions. Everyone goes through heartbreak or heart pain at least a few times in their life, unless you're one of those people who meets your partner in school and go the whole way with them, go the full distance, no judgment. But sounds like I'm judging y'all, but I'm not. It's just not my cup of tea. I need to dip my toes in a few different things and learn a few different lessons. But that's just my karmic path, if you will. That's my new thing, saying if you will after everything. But yeah, healing the heart, obviously not linear and very obviously different for everyone because circumstances are so varied. But I think that all of these little tips can help if you're experiencing any. To be honest, they can help in general. I think something that's not really talked about is the pain that can come from kind of breaking your own heart or saying no to a situation that wasn't filling your cup up. I think that pain is very real and very honest and very brave in a way because you're deciding within yourself that it isn't enough and that your needs are extremely important and that you're not going to push them to the side and hope that the potential of something can bring you what you need in the first place. I think people reveal themselves subtly. You just have to be in tune again. It's that thing I was just talking about, the intuition thing. Keep the channels clear. We're meditating, we're doing the slowing down, and then we're a lot clearer, we're a lot less impulsive, and we allow space between communication and we don't say things that we don't mean, and you know, our actions, thoughts and words align, and it's a better world because of that. But anyway, I think when mending the heart, it is important, first things first, in this day and age, you can't be following them on social media. It's not possible to see the constant reminders every day of the person. You're already going to remind yourself every day without having to look at the visuals. So I highly recommend building up the strength to not look at their socials, to obviously mute the socials, but then to not go on and have a look. That's a really, really big one. You've wired your brain for I don't know how long to think about that person on the reg. So eliminating any extra outside stimuli that can remind you of the person is a really important thing. It doesn't mean you don't want to look at their things. It doesn't mean you don't want to see their hot, sexy reminders. It's fair. No, it doesn't mean that you don't want to see their things. It just means that you value your peace more than a little hit of dopamine when you do see their thing. It's not going to bring you deep fulfillment. So I think it's best to garner that strength to not look, and to then, super important, is the steps to rewiring your brain, bro. This is something I've had to do. I've done it twice in a row with two guys who haven't been meeting me where I need to be met. I don't mean that in an egotistical way, but I mean that in a way where they kind of think they can sort of do the bare minimum. But the thing is, I'm not going to say that. But it's just like, I guess they're just kind of guys that I don't know, maybe they don't know a big love, or maybe they have been shown that they don't have to give a lot. I've had to actively rewire my brain every day. I've had to spend the time rewiring what's going on up here, and it works. But the thing is, you don't really see it working till it works. But it's that Joe Dispenza stuff. If you want to rewire your brain for whatever you could possibly want, then read Joe Dispenza. He's cool. It's that really cool stuff about basically your thoughts become your reality. So choose wisely what you reap. So yeah, spending time with rewiring the thoughts. It's obviously not the first thing that you want to do when your heart's sore and you don't really have the energy to do anything, because it feels like your life is ending because your heart's in a million pieces, even if it was just something that shouldn't feel so big. I think that you can experience intense feelings quite quickly for people, and I don't think time is a measure of love. So yeah, you can be grieving over someone for friggin' 10 years. Like, people never get over some things, but I've found that the rewiring of the brain is something that can really fast forward the healing process. So I'm not going to teach you how to rewire your brain because I'm not qualified to do that, but basically it's for dummies. It is being extremely careful with what you're thinking about. There's that thing about, like, are you healed or are you just not thinking about it? But it's just like, you know, you've thought about somebody for however long every day. You've wired your mind to think about them, so you can also unwire your mind to think about them. But if you're interested in that, you can really put in the work and you can really bear the fruits quite quickly. So Joe Dispenza, again, hit that shit because he rocks. And then it's about putting a lot of time into trusting the process. It's a full surrender moment. You're grieving a life that you thought you were kind of going to live, because whether we like it or not, we all end up kind of having a bit of an expectation when things are flowing in a particular way. You know, we all start to dream, we all start to think into the future, and just, you get excited. We all want connection, we all want love, we all want to be seen, we all want to experience that. To our core, we're built to connect, we're built to love, we're built to procreate. So it is a natural human need, and it's a natural human want, but also a human need to have that. So don't slam yourself for having these desires. Meeting the right person is a flow. It is not intense. It doesn't cause anxiety. It's not this fight or flight sort of thing. I think in this day and age, there's a lot of people that are playing the contrast game where, you know, you give a little, then you give nothing, then you give a lot, then you give nothing. And it's like, it ends up being this game and you don't want to be too interested. The whole dating game it's not, you know, when it's not done with intention, I think it's just, it can get really messy. I feel very sure in my heart that when it comes time to end something with somebody, it means that whatever has come up, the reason for the separation, ends up being the work. It ends up being the mirror. It ends up being what you need to face and what you need to learn from to not take into your next situation. Simply put, I think we all know this, but yeah, it's like, if you can look at the pain as an agent for growth and an agent to trust more and an agent to be even more open, the last thing you really want to do after having your heart stomped on is to open it back up. But that is precisely what needs to be done. And over the last couple of months, I've had to consciously be like, hey, you, stay open. Stay open. You've done a lot of work on this. Like, don't close up. Now's not the time. It's never the time to close your heart, you know. If you're closing your heart, it means you're in fear. It means you're choosing fear over love. And we're not doing that anymore. Obviously, you have to go through the stages of healing. I can't remember what they are off the top of my head, but there's a lot of, you know, anger, what are they? There's denial, whatever it may be. You got to go through the things, and then you reach your acceptance. But I think the quicker you can fall into love, even if it feels a little bit mechanical, even if it's focusing a bit of energy on your heart space, picturing that your heart is opening back up, like some gates, that opening back up. The thing about love, like beyond romantic love, is that you can choose to basically live in love or practice living in love. Practice loving everything that you do, everything that you say, everything that you feel. You can practice that every day and it becomes quite a fun thing to do. You kind of hold yourself a bit accountable for always trying to opt for love, because love is actually one of the most natural things to practice, but for some reason, somewhere along the track, we kind of just forget. But it's all that conditioning and all that jazz that I won't get into. But if you can bring it back and recognize that one of the most natural states we can live in is in a state of love, then you'll bear some fruits. You'll be on a beautiful little frequency there. Again, might feel mechanical, but everything after the heart stuff feels a little bit mechanical. You have to cultivate that energy to keep going, because let's be real, after heart pain, there's often long bouts of depression or short little injections of depression. It is part of the healing process. It's dark, man, but without darkness, there wouldn't be light. But yeah, loving all things, everything you do, every thought you think, every word you speak, practice infusing it all with love. Yeah, the quicker you can fall into that state, the better. But yeah, it's been a bit mechanical for me, but it's also been very naturally flowing in other moments as well. Another one is to listen to your body. Your body is going to give you all the signs you need. It's not initially an easy thing to do, to get up, meditate, and kick yourself in the ass to do the things that need to be done. It isn't easy to fully slow down and to sit with your things. It isn't easy spending full days in tears. It's hard, feeling misunderstood, feeling like nobody understands the level of pain that you're in. But the thing that's actually really not tough is that you have yourself and you're the person who can meet every single one of your needs. Like, just thinking about it, I'm like, what's a need that I can't meet? There's not really a need I can't meet. And the same with you. I'm not saying that I don't want to meet someone. I'm not saying that I'm closed off to love. I'm not saying that I don't have moments where I do crave touch and intimacy and all that stuff. I'm a human being. I'm excited to love again. But for the moment, it is a beautiful practice in meeting myself in the light and in the darkness, and even in this podcast. Like, I've had so many moments of shame and guilt, and then my housemate came home and I had a little chat with her, and she reminded me to channel that fucking shame that we all feel. It's just about being able to meet it with love. But again, ongoing practice. I don't always succeed. But I do really well with words of affirmation. I realize that when I'm in a moment of, because I feel like shame, for me, it's like doesn't even come with a thought. It's like a feeling that just takes over my body. And normally the thought creates the feeling, but I think, you carry things, you store them. And when you start talking about it, you can just be like, oh, I'm in a resonance of shame right now. But anyway, I'm not going to do an episode on shame right now anyway. But yeah, I think another really good one is challenging your thoughts as well, because you're obviously going to go through the process of being like, what have I done? Have I fucked up? Was that their stuff? Was that my stuff? Oh, maybe it could have worked if I did this. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. And it's like, we're all human. We all go through the same kind of thought patterns afterwards. You lose a companion. You lose what could have been. You're grieving. It's okay. But if you're being 100% honest with yourself, you remember that something very honest was knocking on the day that you decided no more. Or this is obviously if you've ended things, but if you were ended on, you got to realize as well that there's something way more in line that's coming for you, because what's meant for you will not miss you. Another one is obviously becoming friends with that voice. I got caught up for so long thinking that I had to not think whatsoever, and then every time I'd think, I'd feel I'd like scold myself. And then I don't know why, I think because I got into like meditation quite early. It's not, you don't just like meditate and understand it. It takes I still haven't fully understood the concepts, and I won't in this lifetime, but I think for so long I'm quite hard on myself in general. It's one of my quirks. For so long I'd have a thought and I'd be like, no, you're meant to be present. Yeah. But I realized that when listening to Ram Dass, it's being loving and being aware of what you're thinking rather than scolding yourself for having a thought. So yeah, that was a beautiful one. But I think everyone's journey is so different, but also so similar in ways. But it's funny to scold yourself when you're doing your best, which is something I'm working on. But yeah, we're naming things, we're challenging them very frequently, and in the end, the biggest one, which I've talked about for so long, and in the end, yeah, it's like just stop for a second and realize that you have come so incredibly far, and that yeah, you've tried to control things at times, and you've been thrown on your ass at times, and maybe you didn't think you'd be able to get through that level of pain, but the thing is you did, and you're here, and every bit of heart pain makes you stronger. It makes you more calculated in your doings. It makes you more intentional, and yeah, again, they're big lessons in the scheme of things. Yeah, it's just a really good thing to remind yourself that you've come so incredibly far, and that you've gotten yourself through times that you didn't think you'd be able to move through, and that you're a better person for having gone through those things. But yeah, put yourself first, put your needs first, voice your needs, and remember that you do deserve the whole damn baguette. We're not settling for crumbs. It's equal give and take. It's open hearts. It's not living in fear. It's doing things with conviction, and it's being open and honest and not playing games. As usual, as always, forever, thank you for watching or for listening. And yeah, I hope that in sharing my truth, you're able to share yours, and we're all so one. So let's stop getting in our own ways. Wow, I got a bit emotional there, didn't I? Let's choose love, baby. I'm gonna play you guys a song